This is the OnePlus Watch 3. I've had it for a little over 100 days now, and I've taken it swimming, biking, and running so that we can look at GPS accuracy, heart rate accuracy, as well as more generally how this watch handles those sports. And what's wild here, I actually haven't had to charge this watch super frequently. The OnePlus Watch 3 gets an astonishing 5 days of battery life, which when compared to other WearOS watches, it's pretty fantastic. Okay, real quickly, if you do decide that this watch is for you and you're buying it for about $350, I'm actually seeing it on Amazon for about $323. Yes, of course, I'll leave links to whatever best price I can find for you guys below in the video description, as well as pin a comment to the top. But you'll need to choose between two color options, the Emerald Titanium and the Obsidian Titanium that I'm going to be showing throughout this video. And when you get this watch home, in the box you'll find the watch itself, the white little charging cable, and a little magnetic charging puck that I actually find, pretty reasonable. Now this is a military grade device. The bezel of this watch is made of titanium, but the watch body is stainless steel with a sapphire crystal front watch face, which does make this watch very resistant to scratches. It's IP68 dust and water rated and rated for 5 ATM, and I actually haven't hesitated to take it out swimming. And looking around this watch super closely after 100 days, I'm really not seeing a ton of issues with this watch. Yeah, I'm sure it could probably use a little closer wipe down, but I don't actually see any visible scratches to my eyes, even when using these tight macro lenses. But this watch is by no means light, which kind of makes it feel a little bit more premium in my opinion. The entire watch with the strap weighs about 81 grams. Now the screen on this watch is a 1.5 inch 466 by 466 LTPO AMOLED display with a peak brightness of over 2,200 nits. I actually had no issues seeing this watch, even in direct sunlight conditions. The only time that I feel like I had a hard time seeing the display was when it was in sleep mode and I actually forgot to turn it off of sleep mode, and I was outside trying to turn the sleep mode off and couldn't see what was going on. But other than that, this watch is very bright. And I really do like the way that this watch looks overall. It has a scrollable crown that presses in and it acts like a back button, or return to the home screen if you're deep within the menu system somewhere. And it has a button on the bottom right that drops you directly into the workout screen. You can scroll down to access any sort of quick menu area, scroll up to access notifications. Scrolling left to right goes back within the menu system, or if you're on the watch face, scrolling left or right will bring up these smart widgets. So things like battery life, weather, timers, calendar details, and a ton more options here. And any of these widgets, all of these you can actually tap into and dive into more details about. But both buttons can actually be programmed to perform other functions. So you can press down the scroll button twice to open up your most recent app, or you can hold it down to pull up your digital assistants, or you can change either of these buttons to do a health check or turn on the display or turn the display into a flashlight. So lots of options here with these two buttons. And with all of that, it's a 47mm watch case. Hopefully, it's pretty obvious that this watch is one of the larger watches that we've tested here. That's probably going to be the biggest hurdle for a lot of people that are considering this watch, especially if you do have smaller wrists. Here's how it looks on my very tiny, but still very manly 165mm wrists. I'm actually pretty used to large watches at this point. And I actually really like the way that this watch looks on my wrist, even though it's a bit big. But just for reference, here's how this watch looks on my wife's wrists. Now you might also notice that the lugs on this watch, they're actually pretty big and they're slightly curved. So it can potentially leave a bit of a gap on smaller wrists, which actually can make heart rate accuracy a little bit tricky. You can see here if I lay this watch flat on the table, you can actually clearly see that it kind of sits up higher because of that curved watch band attachment. And the watch band is quick fit compatible. It's a 22mm watch band. So if you do want to, you could easily change it out for a mirage of different options that you can find on Amazon or just about anywhere. But I actually quite like the typical high quality rubber material that this watch band comes with, the watch band that comes with this watch. Now I did notice that OnePlus announced a smaller 43mm version of this watch. They just announced it a few weeks back. It has a 60-hour battery life, so smaller watch, smaller battery life. And I haven't tested that watch, so I can't really speak to the slightly different model of the OnePlus Watch 3. Now, probably one of the biggest draws to this 46mm OnePlus Watch 3 is that exceptional battery life. Here, let's take a quick look at a chart here. Now, I haven't reviewed the Google Pixel Watch 3, but you can expect about 2 days or so. The TicWatch Pro can go for about 80 hours. They do have an Enduro version, I think, that can go a little bit longer. Then there's the Samsung Galaxy Watch Ultra, which is a fantastic watch. It's probably one that you might be considering if you are considering the OnePlus Watch 3. That watch will go for about 60 hours on a single charge. And then here, the OnePlus Watch 3. It will go for about 5 days or 120 hours. In my experience, has pretty much lined up with the manufacturer's claims. I'd say if anything, it might be more like 4.5 days, really depending on how often you would put it in that low power mode or power save mode. And any of your experiences are gonna vary a touch depending on how much GPS activities you're doing with the watch within a given week. For me, I've mostly been swimming, biking, and running with this watch over the past 100 days. And really the bike rides and things like that will really kind of draw down the battery from using the more battery intensive GPS stuff. But the watch itself has a 631 milliamp battery, and the watch actually has 2 different processors built in here. It's the Snapdragon W5 and the BES 2800. So the Snapdragon, I think, is designed for more high performance needs, and then the other processor is significantly more battery efficient. And I do think that this is probably the OnePlus's secret sauce to having this exceptional battery life. And then the Watch 3 also has 32 gigs of memory available. Now, it also has a ton of connectivity options, really all the stuff that you would expect from a modern smartwatch. So that's Wi-Fi, 5G 2.4 gigahertz options, Bluetooth 5.2, NFC for tap to pay with Google Wallet. And of course, you can use this watch to make Bluetooth phone calls. And then on the GPS side, it's using the newer dual band GPS chipset so that it can communicate on both the L1 and L5 frequencies. Generally speaking, using multiple frequencies on multiple types of satellites does increase the accuracy a ton, but it also does that at the expense of battery life. I would love to see a way for us to adjust those settings in here a little bit, like just be able to tweak and maybe create custom profiles. Maybe it's in here, maybe that's the case. Let me know in the comment section if I'm missing something. But in an ideal world, I would love to see it automatically switch between GPS modes to conserve battery life when the dual frequency isn't needed. Now, here's my normal run while wearing 4 GPS watches along the lakeside here, and I don't see a ton of issues when compared to the Suunto Race S, the Apple Watch Ultra 2, and the Garmin Fenix 8 here. And then the OnePlus Watch 3 is in red. Here's another run on the Nike campus in Portland area, which does have some larger buildings. I actually ran next to this really large parking garage area, and you can see, if anything, the OnePlus Watch 3 looks more accurate than the Apple Watch Ultra 2 in this specific scenario. Not a huge difference, nothing that I would really worry about. Both watches ended up giving me the same 5-mile distance for this same run. But the GPS tracks, they mostly lined up extremely closely here. Now, I will say that this watch falls into more of the smartwatch side of categories as opposed to the sports side of things. And I personally believe that there are better sports watch options on the market, but there are over 100 sports modes for this watch. And most of them are just kind of pretty much generic clones of other sports modes. But when it comes to swimming, it can show you your 100-meter pace, number of laps, distance, number of strokes, S-Wolf score. It doesn't have a drill mode. So kick sets and drill sets can throw off the distance of this watch. And then during outdoor cycling, it'll mostly show speed, distance, heart rate, duration. As far as I can tell, I didn't see any sort of way to connect to an external Bluetooth cycling power meter, which for me is kind of a big issue. I use power for all of my workouts and definitely to monitor output during races. On the running side of things, it tracks cadence, stride length, ground contact time, vertical amplitude, vertical stride ratio, left and right ground contact balance, running power. Again, running power is an estimate from the watch itself. It's the watch's accelerometer, unlike cycling, which is an external device using like a strain gauge typically. But similarly, I didn't see a way to connect an external heart rate strap, or at least I didn't see something. Again, correct me if I'm wrong in the comment section of this video, but without an external heart rate sensor, we really have to rely solely on the internal optical heart rate sensor that's built into the back of this watch. Now here's the thing, my results with the OnePlus Watch 3 have definitely been mixed when it comes to heart rate accuracy. Here's my 5-mile run around Nike, which I would say is okay, maybe not the greatest of accuracy here when compared to the Apple Watch Ultra 2. It's not wildly far off by any means. What really concerned me was how wildly far off this OnePlus Watch 3 was on this easy 3.5-mile run. Again, we're comparing it to a couple of different watches here, but the green Phoenix is actually attached to a chest heart rate strap. So that's probably the one that we want to look at as kind of our true north. You can kind of consider that like our control. Either way, it doesn't even matter because this OnePlus Watch 3 is massively high throughout the entire run. I'm not sure if it locked onto a cadence or something way too high for the entire run here. Now, I've done a lot of runs with this watch. Really, this is the only time that I've seen a situation where the heart rate is this far off and it's consistently far off. So maybe this is some sort of outlier here. Maybe we should toss out this bad data, but I definitely figured I would present it to you guys just in case you were worried about it. Because it is hard when WearOS and OnePlus Watch 3 doesn't give us this option to have some sort of external heart rate sensor. I will say that it does have an ECG option, which should give you extremely accurate results when you are taking the time to actually perform an ECG test. It's definitely an awesome feature, but keep in mind that the full ECG feature is not available in the US because it hasn't been approved by our FDA. If you're not from the US, the FDA is our kind of governing organization for Food and Drug Administration. The OnePlus Watch 3 can also do this arterial stiffness test. I'm not exactly sure how helpful this is for me personally, but it'll also track your sleep, which is definitely something that I'm trying to improve. But before we leave all of the sports stuff behind and compare this watch to some of the other watches that I have here on hand, I do want to throw up some details about some of the other sports modes that you might be interested in. Yes, it has over 100 sports modes, but they have what they call 11 professional sports modes, or sports modes with a bit more detail and specific features. So real quickly, here are my notes on that if you want to pause the video and check out your favorite activity. And I also think that a lot of this information is stolen directly from the OnePlus Watch 3 website. And this watch will also auto-detect workouts, which I actually really like. So if you are heading out for a run or a walk and you forget to start your workout, it'll just give you a little buzz, a little haptic feedback, a little alert, and ask you if you're out walking and you want to record that workout. And then real quickly, I do want to compare this to a few other watches that I have here. watches that you might be considering, I don't know. Probably not the Apple Watch Ultra 2 that I have here, because you're probably either in the Apple camp or Apple ecosystem or the Android ecosystem. So I don't know how helpful it is to see these two watches, but maybe the size comparison will be helpful here. The Apple Watch Ultra does tend to get about 2 days of battery life as opposed to 5 days here. And then the Apple Watch Ultra also costs somewhere in that like $700 to $800 price range. So that is a large jump from this Watch 3 from OnePlus. Here, we'll put this watch next to the Garmin Fenix 8, which is kind of I'd say similar in size to the OnePlus Watch 3. And this watch actually does typically last over a week for me. But the Fenix 8 also comes with a much more massive price tag. It's about $1,100 versus the $350 or so for the OnePlus Watch 3. Overall, I will say that the Fenix 8 is definitely a little bit more focused on sports and endurance type events, with much more connectivity options for third-party equipment. And although it does have a mic and speaker, I still feel like it's not quite as smart of a smartwatch when it comes to these more tightly integrated watches with Android phones. WearOS and Android phones seem to work extremely well together. Now, lastly, here's the Amazfit T-Rex 3, which is a rugged, low-priced option. It has 170 different sports options. So again, I wouldn't say it's as smart of a smartwatch as the OnePlus Watch 3, but it only costs $279, and it does a pretty decent job at a lot of different things. So overall, I do think that this is a great WearOS smartwatch, and I think people are going to absolutely love the massive battery life compared to other similar options on the market, especially within the WearOS category. But I have to admit, like, the lack of direct support for Bluetooth chest straps or cycling power meters, its lack of triathlon support, it's something that I really didn't mention earlier, but some of these little tiny things maybe makes it not the most ideal watch for me personally. But you guys might not care about any of that stuff. You guys, those might be minor complaints for you guys in the whole grand scheme of things. So let me pitch it back to you guys. What do you guys think? Is this a watch that it's something that you've tried? Is it a watch that you're considering? Is there other stuff that you'd like to see in this watch that is missing? Let me know in the comment section. Comment section is right below the video here, and it's right below the like and subscribe button down below there. But either way, fancy new smartwatch or no watch at all, I really do hope that you guys are getting out there, getting after it, and we will see you guys on the next one.